heard this story from an old friend named Kyle. We went to college together, but after graduating, he returned to his small hometown, a remote area in Oregon. It was the kind of place where people left their cars unlocked and everyone knew everyone. Right next to the town was a lake. They used to call it Angel Lake. The name sounded peaceful, but after what happened a few years ago, no one calls it that anymore. We used to swim there every summer, Kyle said. The water was crystal clear. You could see all the way to the bottom. Tiny fish swam around your feet. It was perfect. But then, Kyle told me it started in the summer of 2010. One day, the water suddenly changed, from pristine blue to a murky green. People thought it was the weather, maybe runoff from the forest, muddying the water. But just a few days later, a strange smell began to rise. At first, it smelled like algae, Kyle said. But then it changed. It smelled like blood, that sweet, metallic scent. It was awful. Despite that, the local teens still went swimming in the afternoons. They laughed, dove deep, splashed around. But slowly, one by one, they began to feel strange. They weren't sick, but each of them had the same symptoms: dizziness, headaches, nausea. And most strangely, they all had the same recurring dream. I dreamed I was sinking to the bottom of the lake, Kyle told me. Something was pulling me down, and beneath me, someone was watching. A week later, something happened. A 10-year-old boy went fishing with his grandfather. Near the shore, the boy saw something floating. He thought it was a log, but as he got closer, he screamed. It was a human arm, pale and bloated, with fingers already decomposing. The police arrived. They sealed off the lake and sent divers in. It took the entire day, but eventually they recovered 5 bodies, 3 female, 2 male, all young, between 18 and 25. Here's the creepy part. Kyle paused. None of them were reported missing. No police records, no missing persons reports, no family inquiries. It was as if these people had appeared from nowhere. Their wrists were bound, heavy stones tied to their feet. The news shook the town. Locals began to speak up about strange things they'd seen at the lake. Shadowy figures, whispering voices, ripples on the water, even when the wind was still. Kyle said that the night before the bodies were found, he drove past the lake on his way home from a late shift at the gas station. As he glanced toward the lake, he saw 5 silhouettes lined up along the shore, motionless, staring at the water. He thought it was just kids hanging out. But when he looked again, there was no one there. Kyle couldn't let it go. He started digging. He visited the town library, spoke to the elders, scoured old newspapers. That's when he found something chilling. Angel Lake was the site of a mass murder in 1978. A serial killer, nicknamed the Stone Binder, had kidnapped and killed 5 young adults in one night. He bound their limbs, tied stones to their legs, and threw them into the lake. The strange part? The bodies were never found. Cops thought he buried them elsewhere, Kyle said. But then, 40 years later, they float up. No one could explain how the bodies were in such preserved condition, as if they'd only died recently. Even forensic specialists were baffled. After that, the lake was fenced off. No one was allowed near. But people still whispered about figures walking the shoreline at night, about crying sounds echoing across the water, about dead fish with gaping mouths and blood-red eyes. Kyle, my logical, level-headed friend, told me he doesn't go near the lake anymore. I see them, Kyle whispered. 5 of them. They stand there every night, faces pale as death, eyes hollow. And they look at me, like they're waiting. I don't know how much of this is true. But when Kyle sent me a photo he took that night, 5 blurry shadows standing by the lake, I felt a chill run down my spine. Since then, I've never gone swimming in a lake again, Because who knows what might be waiting under the surface. I once knew someone, Emma. She moved to Vermont with her family about 2 years ago. They lived in a small wooden house, right by a quiet lake, far from the nearest town. The place was beautiful, trees surrounding them, cool breeze, still water. But Emma was the first to say, "There's something not right about that lake." She told me this herself, and what I'm about to share is her story, just the way she told it. On their first night there, Emma couldn't sleep. She lay in bed with the window wide open, looking out over the lake. The moonlight shimmered across the surface, still and eerily silent. And then, she saw it. A figure, standing in the water, right near the edge, directly outside her window. It wasn't blurry, but it wasn't clear either. Just a faint shape of something. Someone. Standing upright in the shallows, its head just above the surface. It didn't move. It didn't blink. It just stood there, staring up at her. At first, Emma thought she was imagining things, or maybe the moonlight was playing tricks. But in the nights that followed, the figure came back, and each time, it was a little closer to the shore. By the fifth night, she said, she could see its face, pale, expressionless, eyes that felt like they wanted to pull her down into the depths. She told her parents. They didn't believe her. No one else lived nearby to confirm what she saw. And then, strange things started happening. One night, Emma heard splashing, slow, deliberate steps in water. When she looked out the window, the figure was walking, step by step, along the shoreline. And each time it passed her room, it looked up, right at her window. The next morning, she went outside. There were wet footprints on the ground, leading from the lake all the way to beneath her window. It wasn't a hallucination anymore. Emma started to truly panic. A week later, she decided to do some digging about the house. She went to the town library and pulled up old property records. And what she found chilled her to the bone. 30 years ago, another family had lived there. They had a daughter, about the same age as Emma. Her name was also Emma. She had drowned in the lake one winter. They said she fell through thin ice. Her body was never found. That's when the dream started. She dreamt of herself standing at the lake, thick fog rolling over the water. A little girl stood waist-deep in the lake, waving to her. When Emma stepped closer, she saw the girl's face, and it was her own. She woke up drenched in sweat. But worse, her hair was wet, her pajamas soaked in mud and sand, as if she had just come out of the lake. The final night before everything ended, Emma set up her phone to record through the night, pointed at the window. The next morning, she watched the footage. At 2:47 a.m., the curtain pulled open by itself. Then something, a faint, human-like shape, passed through the closed window, walked slowly toward her bed, reached out, touched her face, and vanished like smoke. Emma screamed and called her parents. But when they played the video on their phones, there was nothing. No movement, no curtain opening, no figure. Just Emma, sleeping peacefully, as if nothing ever happened. Her family moved out of the house not long after. I met Emma again a few months later. She was living somewhere else, but she still couldn't sleep. Every night she dreamed of that lake. But in her dreams, the water was no longer calm. It churned, black and endless. And beneath the surface, a girl stared up at her, smiling. And in the last dream she ever told me about, the girl finally spoke. "We're the same, you and me." On a quiet summer evening, a group of 4 friends decided to head out to an old, forgotten lake nestled deep in the woods for a night of fishing. The lake, surrounded by dense trees and untamed nature, was known for its eerie silence and haunting rumors. But the friends didn't believe in such stories. dismissing them as mere superstition. They set up their fishing gear and settled down, joking and laughing as they waited for their lines to tug. Hours passed, and everything seemed peaceful. That was until Jake, one of the friends, felt a strange and heavy pull on his fishing line. He tugged back, and to his surprise, he pulled up not a fish, but a necklace. The necklace was covered in lake muck, but when Jake wiped it clean, he found a pendant with an image of a young woman, her face delicate and serene. As he studied it, Jake noticed the face seemed strangely familiar. On closer inspection, he realized the woman's name was written on the back of the pendant. Emma, 1994. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Later that night, Jake began to have disturbing dreams. In the dreams, he saw the woman from the pendant, her face twisted in fear, her eyes pleading for help. Each night, the dreams became more vivid, and the woman began whispering to him, "Find me. Find out who did this." Haunted by these nightmares, Jake shared his experience with his friends, and together, they decided to return to the lake. They dove into the murky water, determined to uncover the truth behind the strange necklace and the woman it seemed to belong to. After hours of searching, they made a chilling discovery. A body, partially submerged in the water, her features still intact but disfigured from the effects of being in the lake for only a short time. It was Emma. Her body had only recently been dumped in the water, and it had not yet fully decomposed. The group contacted the authorities, and the investigation revealed the shocking truth. Emma had been murdered by her jealous husband, who had thrown her into the lake to hide the crime. The case had been under investigation for months, but the authorities had yet to find the perpetrator. Emma's husband was arrested, and justice was finally served. Emma's spirit was set free, and her tragic story was heard. Jake and his friends would never forget the haunting experience at the lake, a place where the past had come to life